Λοιπόν, φίλες, αγαπητοί φίλοι, περνάμε στο δεύτερο κομμάτι της σημερινής του ημέρας, που είναι το Leaders Discussion. Έχουμε τρεις διακεκριμένους επικεφαλείς επιχειρήσεων ή projects, που θα σας τους συστήσω σε ένα λεπτό. Ο καθένας θα μιλήσει για περίπου 13 λεπτά. Θα έχουμε μετά την ευκαιρία να κάνουμε και συζήτηση, άρα περιμένω τις ερωτήσεις σας. Θα ξεκινήσουμε με τον κύριο Steve Vranakis. Ο Steve θα έχετε ενδεχομένως ακούσει το όνομά του, γιατί είναι ο Chief Creative Officer of Greece, της ελληνικής κυβέρνησης. Τον έχει επιστρατεύσει, θα έλεγα, σε εισαγωγικά ο Πρωθυπουργός, προκειμένου να προωθήσει την Ελλάδα, το branding της χώρας και ιδιαίτερα μέσα σε αυτό το πλαίσιο δημιούργησε την πρωτοβουλία Greece from Home για την υποστήριξη του ελληνικού τουρισμού εν μέσω της πανδημίας. Ο κ. Vranakis ήταν διευθυντής του Creative Lab της Google για περισσότερα από 8 χρόνια. Έχει τεράστια διεθνή εμπειρία στη Google, σε τεχνολογικά προηγμένους οργανισμούς και σε δημιουργικούς οργανισμούς, με πολύ γνωστά brands στο ενεργητικό του, που έχει συνεργαστεί όπως η Apple, η Amazon, η NASA, τα Ηνωμένα Έθνη και η UNICEF. Και θα μοιραστεί μαζί μας πολύ ενδιαφέρουσες σκέψεις, ακριβώς για το πώς μπορεί να υποστηριχθεί ο ελληνικός τουρισμός εν μέσω πανδημίας και τις σκέψεις του γενικότερα για την κατάσταση την οποία αντιμετωπίζουμε. Ο Steve θα μιλήσει στα αγγλικά.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to share some of the thoughts I have around the topic and also some experiences. And maybe by coincidence or maybe because we're thinking along the same lines, I'm really, really honored and flattered that some of the topics and the themes that I've come to the conclusion are very aligned to Mark's. And as I said, I'm very, there's no one more respected and accomplished in this space than Mark. So I'm very proud that my stuff marries up to it. So a bit of context on my talk, which is this pandemic, as had been mentioned before, the speed and the effect it has had on us globally, all at the same time. People keep talking about this thing that we've all experienced globally at the same time, has happened at an unprecedented scale and has affected everything we do in our everyday lives: socializing, shopping, definitely travel, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, entertainment, learning, and work. I see my kids, going with this mask. You can see I'm struggling to do a presentation with this mask, but I'm going to keep it on. But I see my kids put them on in the morning and go to school and do a whole day of learning and listening and trying to focus and be active with a mask. And it's crazy when you think about it, but we absolutely have to do it. But I want to talk about work. And what has happened is this new level of isolation through social distancing that even when the vaccine is found, has taught us to work in a completely different way. And I think if we're going to take some positive things away from a very tragic situation, it is how we redefine our relationship with the way we work and the way we work with each other around this notion of mobility and remoteness. Away from one another, but with the right technology, absolutely connected. So these images, I see these images and they're just, you don't know what to say. So in a world where we no longer commute but collaborate remotely, and I used to commute when I was in the UK up until last year, I used to commute 2 hours into London and 2 hours back out of London when we moved to the South Coast in Brighton. And I think about all that lost time, and it wasn't all lost time because I would be, doing emails on the trains and all that, but I think about all that time spent traveling to the place that you need to work from, and I think about now where I get up and I go to the home office, or I go to a local cafe or somewhere, and I'm able to log in and connect, and it's sort of business as unusual, but I'm up and running in minutes as opposed to hours. Where we are evaluated on our output, not our input. And it was interesting when Mark was talking about the people who have that visibility maybe traditionally were the ones that you acknowledged as the ones who were doing the most work and being the most impactful. But what happens when you can't see anyone? And unless you spy on them, which of course you're not going to do if you want to run an efficient business, how do you determine who's doing what? And how do you determine that the people that are just delivering, irrespective of when they're doing it and how they're doing it, are what is of real value, not necessarily the amount of hours they put in? And I think, again, my experience in Greece has shown that Greece is turning towards this logic very quickly. Historically, it was very much about the amount of hours somebody put in and getting there before the boss got there and leaving after the boss left. And now I think smart employers are understanding that if the work is being done to the standard or exceeding the standard that it should be done at, they don't really care how long it took you to get there. Productivity and well-being are intrinsically linked. So again, I think this is really interesting because I was very fortunate at Google where they invested a lot in us, in our learning and development, in our diet, in everything that made us feel better. And when we were feeling better, we were definitely more productive. And I think, again, we're seeing that, yes, we have this fear of the pandemic and all these negative things associated with it, but we're also spending more time with our loved ones and our family. We're able to, the people who are fortunate enough to work from home are able to, nip into their kitchens and make something instead of maybe buying something unhealthy. And I think these things are really interesting because if you can manage to put yourself in a positive state and you're actually feeling healthy, I think it has a direct correlation on how effective you are. And I think re-examining and rethinking the very notion of what I was saying before, which was I was commuting 2 hours to a physical space. We congregated, we did all that work in the physical space, and then I commuted back. Now, I think that at least 50% of what I was doing could have been done remotely, and I absolutely agree with the value of connecting physically and those collisions and those interactions with your coworkers or with cross-functional teams. But I don't think that that has to be the everyday. And I think there's a lot of conversation around the conversation not being around working from home, but the idea of being able to work from anywhere. And I'm a strong believer in that. So how do you lead in a contactless world where you turn, and these were some of the things I think that Mark also spoke about, the idea of uncertainty into stability. And I think, again, there are people who are looking for answers. And we're all looking for answers right now. We're looking all over, to leadership from a country, leadership within an organization. And I think what I try to do as a leader of my team is there are certain things that I'm just not qualified to answer in regards to what's going to happen with the pandemic. But there are certain things in regards to the work and the project and the impact that we can make that I try to create a sense of stability through. And I try to communicate things in a way that people really understand, and it takes that uncertainty out. And that's to follow up on that, the ambiguity into clarity. I mean, if you're not exceptionally directional when you sit down over VC with your team because you have that added factor of distance, and if you're not so clear as to what we should be doing, the shared vision, who's doing what, I think you're going to struggle to do what you're meant to be doing effectively. And ambiguity is one of these things that has arisen from this level of distance. So clarity, clarity, clarity. I think one of the things also, you see a lot of people complaining on the social media, and it sort of upsets me because, believe it or not, there's a lot of people who aren't fortunate enough to work from home, who have to physically go out, who have to physically put themselves in danger to help other people or to serve other people. So I think, firstly, we should be grateful if you are able to work from home. Secondly, if you are working from home and it is becoming a routine, trying to figure out how you make it more flexible. Again, the conversation for me isn't about working from home, it's about working from anywhere. And then the last point is, again, something that was raised earlier, the notion of isolation. And I think anywhere you can try to make a virtue of a negative like isolation, around this idea of autonomy. You are the master of your own fate. You are able to determine to a certain extent when and how you're going to do things and bring back something of value to the team when you reconnect at the next meeting time. So what I wanted to show was an example that I've shown a few times, and I'm not able to share, unfortunately, as of yet, the work we're doing around the country narrative and the repositioning, but hopefully that'll be something that we're able to share very soon in the next couple of months. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was tourism, and obviously I think it's a fifth of our GDP. One of the things that we were asked to help out with was trying to keep people connected to a country that relies on people visiting in real life at a time of pandemic when they weren't physically able to arrive here. So how did we do this? So how do you keep visitors connected when they aren't able to come to the country? How do you ensure that locals aren't going stir crazy and that they're actually keeping occupied whilst in lockdown? And then lastly, there was a segment of the population in the tourism-related industries, not just the immediate and associated industries, that were massively affected by the pandemic. How do you offer them an opportunity to skill up during this time when they weren't necessarily working at full capacity because their organizations were shut, and come back stronger with new skills? So this is a meeting we had with the Prime Minister, and anecdotally, I made the mistake, like some people, my hair was getting a bit out of control, and I made the mistake of shaving my head the night before, thinking nobody's going to see me, and all I'll have to do was turn my camera off and put a nice picture of myself up. And then I got a call from the Prime Minister's office to share some thinking in the morning. So there's grumpy me wearing a woolly cap trying to hide my shaved head. So you might want to make a note, don't shave your head mid-pandemic if it's unnecessary. And what I wanted to say about this is, when we were asked to come together from the tourism sector, we had to come back with an immediate response, all done remotely, as you can see, to try to salvage whatever we could of one of our most important industries. So we came up with this idea of Greece from Home. And Greece from Home addressed those 3 points that I mentioned a couple slides ago. It allowed, through an aggregated channel on YouTube, for people to watch some of the best stuff that we had pulled together across all aspects of Greek sort of culture, music, gastronomy. Working with Discover Greece and Marketing Greece, we were able to highlight some of these incredible destinations to people that still had Greece as top of mind to go to when they were able to travel again. And then lastly, partnering with Google, we were able to do all these grow Greek tourism and growth skills and training applications, both remotely and sort of learning over video, to video conference with groups where you were being taught all these different things around social media, writing marketing plans, all these sorts of things to individuals affected in the sector. So we did this in 24 hours. We did a sprint where I pulled together my team, my infamous Ithaca 6 interns. We had a presentation in the morning that we shared with Minister Theocharis. Within 48 hours, with some amends that we were asked to implement, we were sharing with the Prime Minister, and then we launched it in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. And I just wanted to share a little video that gives a summary of it. So that was the little video that we produced. Again, this was done during the first wave last year for Greece from Home. So I always want to try to do really practical takeaways that people can say, yeah, but how did you do that? So this is how we did it. We really genuinely treated it as business as usual / unusual. Every day we have a daily scrum at 10 a.m. Everybody is expected to be there. Everybody shows up, they're present, they're not doing something else in the background. And everybody is reporting back where they are, what they're doing, status, timing plans, absolutely everything. We go around from camera to camera. Everybody shows exactly what they're working on, and everybody else comments. And that is sacred, 10 a.m. every morning. I've divided the products up where everybody is an owner. Most projects require a handful of people to work on them because they need different skill sets, but there is an owner, and the owner is responsible with very clear roles and responsibilities across the team. We have tapped into, as an ex-Google employee, we use the Google suite, but again, there's, Microsoft Teams, everybody has a comparable offering, and they're all very, very good. But again, every file that we use is stored on Google Drive and shared. All our docs are open and collaborative, and we work on them together in real time, along with our presentations, our other documents. And then we use Google Meets, but we also use Zoom and Teams across everything. When you're working remotely and you aren't able to work as closely with some of the partners that you would like to in the physical world, we're using, again, a lot of online services. So there's a website service, and some people laugh when I say this. And when I told the people at Wix that we had built Greece from Home on Wix, they couldn't believe it. But that's a very easy to build website platform where the Greece from Home platform, because we don't have developers on my team, we could only build in sort of this what you see is what you get environment. We built an entire website for the country on an off-the-shelf application that anybody can use. So we partnered with them. We partnered with Google, as I said earlier, for the learning aspect. Marketing Greece for all their existing content, because we didn't have a time and we weren't actually able to go out into the real world to film or photograph anything. And then YouTube, we aggregated. Again, there's so much content. We pulled it together. We created a playlist and a channel. So we took existing things along with all the different talent that we brought together remotely. We run a 24-hour operation. So along with my interns in Athens, I work with two, I like to call them Philhellenes. I'm the diaspora. I have my interns who are the local Greeks, and then I have my Philhellenes, who are two Swedish brothers. One was in Bangkok at the time, and one was in Stockholm. So between the different time zones, we were constantly doing amends and changing, and there was always something new to look at. And then we adopted the product and engineer mentality. I think it was mentioned earlier, again by Mark, which is what we did at Google, where we would launch things. We would get them out there very quickly, even if they weren't perfect, and then we would learn and iterate, and we would continuously go through that cycle of making things better. One of the big things that I learned from this experience, and I'm continuing to learn, is, again, this idea of when you're, again, fortunate enough to be able to work from anywhere, from home, you're able to balance that work around your life. And that's a really special thing. And I think we should really think about that, especially in a country where we pride ourselves on well-being and lifestyle. And I think this is fundamentally my big takeaway, that life is infinitely greater in value than work. And I don't want to diminish this, and I don't want all the employers to send me angry emails if they don't believe what I'm saying. But I think we've really seen the effects of what this thing can do to us and our friends and family and our health, and we're seeing it all around us. And it's a moment to really cherish what's special to us. And with these technologies and these approaches, be able to focus on our life, because it's infinitely more important, in my opinion, than our work. That's me and my team, the Swedes and the interns. Thank you very much. And my woolly cap, hence the shaved head. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. This is a fascinating case study. I think it's a nice creative team, which you have shown us how you work globally in all the interesting ways you described in how to design this particular site. I know that you have to go, so I won't keep you. But just before, I want to ask you a question. Any glitches that you have noticed in this process? Anything we should be aware of?
Absolutely, loads of glitches. And I'm not just talking about cameras not working and all that. Loads of glitches because it's new. And as I said, you know, I was joking upstairs when we were speaking. I was very fortunate because we've worked in this manner at organizations like Google for a long time because I covered a lot of regions. But I remember some of the first meetings I had with cross-functional teams in the private sector and government where people were showing up and it was like a comedy. You know, they were coming to a call and there were like dogs and children running across camera. Someone's cleaner came in and started vacuuming. Like, you got to take these things seriously. You know, the pandemic is a serious thing. And, you know, maybe some people let their guard down and we're seeing the effects of it right now. We have to take these things seriously. This is life and death. And I think when it comes to these work environments, if everybody isn't taking these things seriously, it's just not going to work. So I think you have to be there. You have to be present. Don't turn your camera off and do emails and all that sort of stuff. You have a moment to be with your team, to focus, and to set the intention and the agenda for the day, for the week, for the month. And that's a really, really important moment. And then you can manage the rest around your life and everything else you have to do.
Any collaboration problems? Any issues? Was it relatively straightforward?
You know, it is relatively straightforward. I think I do find myself, I'm a designer, so I find it difficult to express myself in words. And I find myself, you know, when you have to describe things in written language in order to get something done for the next day, those are sort of difficulties I have. You write a lot more. You know, you're obviously on VC and all that, but I think you're asking for things and describing things that need to change, and you're constantly writing. So I find that a bit difficult, but it's not the end of the world.
So it's having to make the implicit explicit, or something which comes through body language, through just looking at...
Exactly what you just said. You know, when I was in London, because we were all designers, we would speak in shorthand. I would say things to my team, and they would see, and I'd say things like, you know that thing, just do it.
Yeah.
And like, how ambiguous is that? I'd say, you see that thing, it's not right, let's do this, this, and that. And they would immediately know that meant change the font, change the kerning, change the leading, whatever, right? And I think now you literally have to describe it because of that distance. And that's another difficulty. You hit it the nail on the head. That level of mannerism and body language is very difficult to tap into over camera.
It's almost, we need to develop a new etiquette.
There's the etiquette and this sort of VC telepathy.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a telepathy that happens when you're present in physical proximity.
Well, Steve, I think I won't keep you any longer. It's been fascinating. We learned a lot. And actually, you won't be here, but when we hear from Mrs. Daskalodonakis and Mr. Stavro, you will see different organizations which they have handled these things differently. You have offered us the high end, the creative end, if you like, of organized life, which is very nice. Then we will hear also other cases which come from a different sides of the spectrum. Brilliant. And this will make a nice blend, I think. But thank you very much for
again for having
making
me.
the time. I know how busy you are. Thank you.
Thank you.